All right, so this is the Thunderhead UI meeting for February 8th, 2016. All right. All right, so there's only 3 discussion board items and a couple of show and tells. Guess we'll start at the top. Chris, you added this one?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion between Justin, I, Kai, and Adrian around the new architecture or pattern that's being used with the new tagger. And what I'm finding is that we've actually come to a lot of good conclusions at this time around that particular approach. And I think it's time for us to ensure that we have it documented in the wiki, and from there we'll be able to really iron things out and have a clear, defined pattern for us to be following with the new approach. And I'm willing to front that. I'm willing to take care of that as a task. I also brought this up in Titan's team meeting. But I think overall, I think it's a good idea for us to iron things out completely on paper.
I'm for that. So you're
not talking about.
I'm sorry, Justin?
Kai was trying to say something, but he's not coming through.
Is he muted?
Maybe he was just messing with us.
Yeah, I still can't hear you, Kai.
got nothing.
It's like a nutcracker.
We need a mouth reader in here. Lip reader.
I think that's good. Just do a general draft, and we can all contribute to it.
Yeah, exactly. I think just I'll start paving the way for that, and then I think there's still some pending topics that need to be ironed out. Some around error handling and a few other things, but I think the best way for us to do that is to start talking with, the pattern being well defined, as well as the best practices starting to be laid out around that approach.
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
Yep. Yes, we can.
Hey, there we go. Good. Sorry about that. Yeah, this is a relevant topic with documentation, because we're actually in the midst of adding some documentation journeys as well. I think, as taking this ticket kind of one step further, we should really be trying as much as possible to include documentation as a part of any new code that may be significantly different from our day-to-day within the application. So I think Chris's point of getting this documented for the tagger is spot on, and I think it'd be useful once that documentation is made to also share it with the team, kind of give everybody kind of a walkthrough of what it is and how it works, and kind of the things we're thinking about, some of the solutions, problems and solutions, and also still lingering problems if there are any.
Sounds like you have a vacuum going over your microphone.
That's my computer fan.
Nice, nice. All right, that one's straightforward.
Yeah. So the next one came out of a PR comment from Kai in relation to returning early and avoiding mutations inside of our functions. So we're more functional, and so that it's more optimal to avoid continually changing a particular variable. So we're just proposing here to avoid mutation entirely and then return early in order to simplify the code and also to avoid the performances that come with mutation.
Yeah. you have any example PRs that you were?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. I'll pull it up. I should have added that there before.
Just quit early. I'm in favor of it. That's fine.
Yeah, quit early, I think, is a part of it. The other part, though, is whenever we find ourselves defining a variable and then have a few conditional statements after it, basically an if, else if, or a switch that either updates that variable or assigns that variable to a new value. That kind of if, else if probably can and should be extracted into its own function that just returns with each case. So if A, return B. If B, return C. If C, return, I don't know, X. So you basically have a concrete function that just takes an input and just returns a very predictable value, rather than having kind of a var foo, and then within your function you kind of have, if this case is true, then foo equals this, and then foo might get further mutated down the line. You can just say var foo equals get my foo, and it you can functionally assign that value and move on. So you're not worried about that logic within the function itself. It's extracted into a separate function that's clean and discrete.
I mean, that sounds clean, but other than being clean, do we, in that particular case, do we get any kind of improvements in terms of efficiency?
I think it's just more efficient to maintain, and you're hiding. It's less likely that you're hiding bugs because you're not mutating the value based on case. You're assigning the value based on case.
Okay.
I'll look for an example of that and add it into the bulletin on the board afterwards. It'll take me a little bit to go through and find a couple examples, but I'll make sure that those are added there.
Well, if nobody disagrees, just write it up, send it through the group, and then add it to the best practices.
Sounds good to me.
All right. You wanna own that, Chris?
Yep, that's fine.
Members, Wilkins. Cool. All right, let's move this one over to following mark. All right, Angular 1.5 released on Friday.
Yeah, this is kind of in relation to what we talked about 2 weeks ago. We were looking at, I think we're on 1.4.7 right now. We were talking about an upgrade to 1.4.9. Looks like 1.5 stable was just released on Friday, so we may want to include that in the discussion. I'm not sure if we're ready to make that leap yet, or if we want to schedule that in at the beginning of the next release cycle. But I thought I'd just bring it up that 1.5 is stable and ready to ship.
What are we in right now in terms of you were just saying? So we haven't moved up to 1.49 yet, right? We're hopefully doing it in this release. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think that's what we had talked about last time. Jaime was going to own that, I think, and I think ultimately we were just going to have a tech debt that if we had time to get to it, then we'd go ahead and get to it. But it may be a little late now in this release cycle to go ahead and do that. So we may want to be considering the next, very beginning of the next cycle to get an upgrade, whether we go to 1.5 or just the latest 1.4.
All right. My opinion would be to go to, if we were to do anything in this one, we'd stick with 1.49. And if we don't do 1.49 this one, then certainly we do 1.5 on the on PC 13 or whatever's next.
That sounds good to me.
Real quick for that upgrade, is there anything in that release that we would want to start migrating our code base over to, or at least adopting new practices on, like different controller patterns or anything like that?
1.5 brings components to the table. So yes, I think if we were to, if and when we upgrade to 1.5, we definitely want to take a close look at components and consider our best practices and kind of approaches with relation to components versus directives. It's a really nice new tool. Is much more forward-looking than what we've had before.
My vote is to push it out to the next release and just go to 1.5.
So don't do 1.49 now. Just leave it.
Yeah, just leave it.
I might just add a little bit about we had mentioned last time, if we do the small incremental ones, then the pain of doing the next release is always less. So we had talked about if we tried to keep more on top of the incremental upgrades, then it is easier to do the large ones, and then we don't get so afraid of upgrading all the time.
Let's see where, I mean, if Jaime's already started down the road of PC of 1.49 and he's already kind of started that or almost completed, then I think we should probably keep going with it. But if he hasn't done any work on it, then certainly there's probably no reason for him to start on it. Because it would be late in the game, because we're looking at a mid-March release. So we'd rather have some more tested on that right now as opposed to, 2 weeks before release. All right, so I'll see if I can hunt hunt him down. All right. Yeah, shit. There we go. All right. So the only thing we have today is show and tells. Are any of these kind of ready to go, or do we need to push them off for a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not ready to go. I'm too swamped with dagger work. So
Fair enough.
The other one is really quick and simple. So if you just click on that link, this is more fun for everyone and not really pertinent to Thunderhead at this point, but this is a compatibility table for the ES6 features. Across the top, you have the different browsers and the polyfills and so forth. And then on the left is the sort of groups of features. So you can sort of check if something, this is for ES6, so you can check for what features in ES6 are available across the different browsers, and then sort of plan things out from there. The coolest part about this, in my opinion, is if you go and you expand one of those, you see on the feature name, there's that drop-down arrow. If you expand that and then hover over the little bubble thing closest to the chart, it shows you an example of the test that they're using for that feature. So it gives you a little example of each of the features that are coming out in ES6. So if you're trying to explore the feature sets in ES6 and maybe something doesn't make complete sense when you're reading about it online, these are the tests that they're using to check if something is actually supported by a browser. So it's a working example of that feature in work. So it's kind of a cool thing to get familiar with ES6 before it comes out, and it's in all of the browsers or before we start using it. So figured I'd share that. You can also limit the browsers. If you go to the top of the page, right now it's showing unstable platforms, and I think there's other ways of limiting it to non-phone ones and stuff like that. So it's kind of a fun table. It's got ES5 in there too if you want that, and then Next and some other ones. So that's all I have.
How often is that updated?
Constantly.
Okay, so this is like a current thing.
Yeah, it's updated almost daily. So anytime something new comes out, it's very well maintained.
All right, that's good to have. All right. So we're kind of short. Anybody have any general comments, questions this week they wanted to bring up? Anything come to mind? No. Everyone feeling good about PC 12?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we can end this one short today. Everyone okay with that?
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Good here.
All right. Well, have a good day.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
See you. Bye.
Here.